Hey, welcome everybody. Glad to be here for this week's live. I know typically we've had Zach joining us in the past. Uh, Zach had an appointment that he had to get to, and it was just running a little bit late. So it looks like he got me flying solo. But it's a pleasure to be here. Glad we have the opportunity to talk. And today's topic is largely around the B2B sales process and how that's changed and really just changed again. It's constantly changing and constantly evolving. Uh, and it's based on a number of different things. How the buyers have changed, largely due to the economic environments, political changes, and technology changes, and so forth. And there was a gentleman, Dr. Edward Stemming, that has a quote very famously said, you don't have to adapt. Survival's optional. And that's exactly how the best of the best end up remaining on top, is they're always finding more ways to adapt. And so one of my colleagues, and how I mentioned in the book, the Predictable Profits Playbook, when we talk about advantages, we talk about, use an example of LASIK vision. We say perfect vision. There's a concept that was created a while back that one form of LASIK vision is having one eye nearsighted and one eye farsighted. And the same thing when running a business. We want to make sure we're looking at what's happening right now, but also we want to anticipate what's happening in the future. And in different elements of the business, and one being B2B sales, we need to figure out and determine how do we have to adapt to today's environment. So let's just take a look at a few different things here. And where this is going to be a rather rapid session. But let's just take a look at a few different things and what needs to happen in order for us to stay and maintain our competitive advantage. One of the things is that B2B has largely gone digital. Now, that obviously happened through 2020, but currently the data suggests that more and more professionals are relying on digital to stay. They would much rather have digital conversations with salespeople than they would having an interruption where somebody comes into the office. And so, with digital being a preference for salespeople, as as entrepreneurs, as founders, as leaders within the organization, we can't rely on word of mouth and referrals. We can't just rely on events. We have to think in terms of scalability. And so, one of the first things that we have to look at for competing in B2B sales is that scalability. And that scalability is leveraging outbound marketing techniques, because outbound is very, very scalable, as well as a combination of various inbound techniques. And so, phase one is making sure you have a great outbound. Phase two is then an inbound outbound combination. And then phase three, you're going to want to roll out these inbound strategies. And that's just based on an efficiency paradigm that we've created. And so you need to make sure that you're thinking about scalability. The next thing that we have to look at is how the buyers have changed. And we know that buyers have become researchers. You've heard me talk about this in past live streams. Back in 2019, the average buyer was looking at 17 different sources of information before making a buying decision. Well, in 2021, that went up to 17 different sources of information. A lot of people don't understand the implications of what that means. It means our buyers are researchers. So if you're not going to be the one providing the information that they're looking for as to whether or not they should buy the service that you're offering, buy from you, what makes you different, and so forth. If you're not providing that information, how you can compare to competitors and so forth, then they're going to go somewhere else that has that information. So your buyers have become researchers. Now, from an organizational standpoint, what that means is that marketing and sales need to talk more. Marketing is engaged in the pre-selling, so that by the time a prospect gets on the phone with the salesperson, that they have all the information that's necessary so that they can close while they're on the phone. And so, a lot of that pre-selling activity and an understanding of what is the information that they need is going to happen before the call is actually held. So And think about this for a minute. When our buyers are researchers, by the time they actually get on the phone with a salesperson, they're already going to have all this information about your product and about your service. And so part of this change that we need to look at, knowing that our buyers are researchers, that they already understand your product, your service, they've already done some research on the company. They're getting on the phone with you and they're looking for one thing. They're looking for a fresh perspective. And so as a salesperson, your number one most important criteria for closing the sale is that fresh perspective. Can you offer somebody a perspective that gets them to sit back on their heels, pause for a moment, and say, wow, that changes everything? And that simple phrase, that changes everything, oftentimes makes the difference between making the sale and not making the sale. Because the correct sales process is one where you we metaphorically refer to this as creating a bridge. You have one side of the pylons, this is where they're at now. The other side of the pylon is ultimately where they want to go. The sales conversation is, how do we build the bridge? And the moment that bridge is formed, it gets them to stop and say, wow, that changes everything, and the deal is made. And so the way we build that bridge is not only in understanding the pains, understanding what it is that they're looking for, but it's also that fresh perspective. The Rain Group did a study and they were looking at over $1 billion of sales, and they wanted to see what's the difference between the top salesperson, the person who plays second place, and so forth. And one of the things that they found is that the number one criteria of the top salespeople over and over again is that fresh perspective. With so much information out there, your prospects want to know, what can you tell me that I haven't already heard before? And that helps to establish that unique advantage. The other part of how B2B has changed so much is that we have to follow up more. The sales process has gotten longer. And particularly now, where we have a more discerning consumer, where the market and the economy has changed, and the scabs haven't completely healed from 2020, we know that it's taking longer for deals to close. The buying committee has expanded to include one additional person, which is that of the CFO. And you're selling the CFO wants to know, why should we be spending money on this? What's going to be the ROI? So there's a certain amount of ROI justification, and they're building the case for that. And so again, part of our job is understanding how the buying process has changed. What is the information that they need? Who's going to be involved in the buying decision, in the buying process, so we can provide them that information. Now, in good times, when the economy is roaring and going great, there's less of a reliance on ROI justification. There's less of a of there's a shorter sales cycle. So understanding that the buying committee has gotten larger, understanding that it can take longer to make buying decisions, we have to look at, how are we going to stay top of mind? So follow up, and follow up happens in multiple different ways. It's multi-channel. You want to stay in front of them, so we're going to do retargeting over and over again. Oftentimes, not just brand images, but providing content in front of them. Maybe it's videos like this one right here, so that as they consume the content, it's consumption that drives conversion. The other element is LinkedIn and Twitter. Create a lead list and make sure you're engaging with them on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's how we maintain the relationship, by keeping the conversation alive. Leave meaningful comments. They'll reply back and forth. That's how we stay in front of them without just sending emails over and over again. Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? That's not how we're going to maintain the relationship. That's how we're going to get ignored. Email is a critical component of that conversation in the follow-up, but tactfully value-added emails offering to assist and provide them more information on that process. So if we look at some of the ways that the B2B sales process has changed in just the last few ways, if we're going to sum it up, it's that we have to think in terms of scalability, right? We have to think in terms of outbound. We have to think in terms of inbound. We need to create scalable marketing and sales strategies because we can't rely on word of mouth and referrals. The next part is that buyers have become researchers. They're now looking at over 27 different sources of information before making a buying decision. They want to know, if I'm going to have this amount of money reserved, should I even consider buying this product or service? And if the answer is yes, who do I buy it from? And what makes them different? And how do I justify this? And so the buyers have become researchers, and that's where marketing and sales have to align themselves. Then it's about, because I've already looked at all this stuff here, I need a fresh perspective. What are you going to tell me that I haven't already heard? So we have to deliver that fresh perspective. And then finally, the follow up, because it's taking longer for buyers to make decisions. They're selling to the CFO, there's ROI justification, and so forth. So create that multi-channel approach, integrate social selling, LinkedIn and Twitter to stay in front of people, and you're constantly laying on the cool by giving them a like and engagement, comment, and so forth, sending them an email and continuing that conversation. Buyers don't buy on your terms, buyers buy on their terms. So support their terms. So that sums up today's conversation. If you like what you heard, you want to learn more, feel free, leave us comments. Let us know what you like. Let us know the type of questions that you have, so we can create more content that's going to further support you and help you get to beyond 7 figures. All right, this is Charles Gaudette. I'll see you guys later.